Hi everyone, I'm so glad you're joining me as I talk through the process of having a sale commonly known as Purge and one of the American Girl Doll buy sell trade groups on Facebook, since that's typically the platform that I would sell American Girl Doll items. So I wanted to run through the process with you, give you some information on how I do it. I'm not saying it's the only way. This is my process. I've done pretty well using it. And if you can leverage something from what I'm telling you or learn something, then this is time well spent. So anyway, there's a lot of potential in selling on the side. Let's call it a side hustle. But just keep in mind, if you're selling on the side, it's counted as income, and you should consult with an accountant who will provide you with advice that you need on what type of records you need to maintain, how about organizing your documentation so that when it comes time to file your taxes, everything's in order and you don't have to backtrack. Also, you're looking at the actual sales that I made during 2 years processed through PayPal. And these are not the net numbers that I walked away with, because you'll need to pay taxes on your profit, and your profit is technically the difference between what you originally paid for the item and what you sold it for. But I'm not a tax expert. I use an expert, and I recommend you do the same thing to ensure that everything is in order. Let's get into the mechanics of hosting a sale, also known as a purge, in one of the Facebook groups. The first thing you need to do is pick a group that has rules that work with your personality or your selling style. So I'd recommend that if you're haven't joined many groups, that you check out my video review of 35 Facebook groups. So there's a lot of information packed in this video, and hopefully it will help you determine which group you'd like to sell in. I also included a link to the video below to make it easy for you. My group of choice to do my sales in, or I would say most of my sales in, is the American Girl Dolls Resale for USA group. The advantages of doing sales in this group is, number one, there's a very high amount of members, so you get more attention to your sales, and the rules are very well defined for buyers and sellers, and I go through the rules in the video I just spoke about on my channel. Another thing I want to point out is that when you're joining groups, the group oftentimes has questions that you need to answer. Be sure to answer all the questions completely, and don't put answers like N/A, meaning not applicable to you, because if the question's there, it's applicable, and if it's not answered, chances are you're going to get denied membership. I tell you this because I'm an admin in the group that I just mentioned to you, and we have certain rules set up to decline membership requests, and there are some that we look at, and if the questions are not answered fully, completely, honestly, the best we could tell, then membership will be declined. Moving on to the next step. Once you have a group in mind that you want to do your sale in, you have to figure out what's the best day and time to host your sale. I'd recommend that you observe other people hosting sales in the group and when they do their sales, the type of traffic that they're getting, and plan around these observations. Based on my own experience, I personally found the best sales that I've had are typically on the weekends when people are not working, and Sunday is a good day. Depending on the time of year, the time of day changes. So for example, in the summer months, I find that early in the morning on a Sunday or a Saturday worked. In the winter months, when I guess kids are home and families are home, evening hours seem to work. So it depends. So to just observe what other people are doing, when they're getting the most traffic on their posts, and plan your sale accordingly. I just wanted to show you a couple of snippets from sales that I had. This particular one, I had 1,000 comments. So definitely some high traffic on that one. This one here, I had 586 comments on that sale. So these sales were clearly done during peak sale times. The other thing I wanted to point out to you when you're scripting your sale posts is be careful when you're using words that the Facebook algorithms may pick up and think that you're posting something that you shouldn't be selling. For example, in this particular sale that was rejected here, I think I had some comments in the description related to pets for sale. I'm sure it didn't say pets for sale. It probably said AG pets for sale, doll, body parts possibly, stockpile might be another word that the filter picked up on. I'm not really sure, but just use caution so that your sales post doesn't get rejected. Moving along, script out the sale post. Use some of the pointers I already mentioned. Make sure that you mention the day, the time. If you have any particular items you want them to know that might entice your buyers, for example, Girl of the Year items, Pleasant Company items, historical items, food items, pet items, who knows, make sure you indicate that, because sometimes people just scan for certain things that they're looking for, and that will determine if they're going to come to your sale. You want to indicate what the shipping rates are as well, and if you have anything in particular that you want them to know, for example, if you're going to flatten boxes, it's important that they know that. The next thing is to prepare a collage or just take a picture of all your items that you intend to sell, because people like to see what you're selling, and that's basically going to help them decide if they want to join in and snatch up some stuff from your sale. The next thing I'm going to talk about briefly are these abbreviated terms, and provide you with this chart here so that you know what you can use rather than having to spell everything out. A couple of additional terms not on the chart is VGUC, which is very good use condition, and GUC for good use condition, and the last one is OB, off brand. So these terms should help you when you're using them and posting your items for sale. Now it's time to take your pictures. Make sure that you take good pictures so that your buyers can see exactly what they're going to get. I like to take pictures of the front and back of clothing items because your buyer would typically like to know what it looks like, and if there's any stains or rips, make sure you point that out as well, and get close-ups of any defects so your buyer can get a sense of what the defect is and what it looks like. Now I want to give you an idea of how I record items and document the sales as well. So I use an Excel spreadsheet, and the first column is status. So once I send an invoice, I indicate in this column if I sent the invoice. If I don't have PayPal information, then I indicate that as well. It just helps me track things. The second column is a description of the item that I'm selling. And you can see some of these I'll have the doll's name. So if I want to look at a doll based on collection, I can just type in Julie's or Leah, and then I can find all of that doll's items. Then I indicate the brand, if it's American Girl, Pleasant Company, maybe off brand, but this will give you a sense of what that is. What the condition is, because while I'm taking my pictures, I'm also noting the condition, and if there's anything wrong with the item, I'll indicate that as well. NIB is new in box, NIP is new in package. So you can find your own abbreviations to do your documentation, the price that I intend to sell the item for. If the item is an add-on, so an add-on is typically something that's extremely light, that's not going to exaggerate the shipping cost. So I'll indicate if it's an add-on. If it's exact shipping, meaning a much larger item, I'll indicate that as well. I'll indicate the sold to, what the person's PayPal information is, and any additional comments I may need to add here. So this spreadsheet is started at the point in time when I'm taking my pictures. So as I'm taking photographs, I'm entering the item into this spreadsheet. So when the sale starts, I have the spreadsheet in front of me, the pictures already prepared in a folder in my phone or on my computer, and I can reference this, and I don't have to remember the condition of the item or the exact name of it, because it's already listed here in my spreadsheet. Of course, the picture, I could tell what it is, but I may forget that it's something that belongs to Julie or Leah or whoever. So the spreadsheet's very helpful to me personally and helps me keep everything organized in one place. I also have other columns that are hidden at the end of the spreadsheet here, and those columns would include what was the price that I paid for the item, so that I can calculate the difference. Because when it comes tax time, you're paying tax on what's called the profit. So the profit would be the amount of money you made on the item, and that would be the difference from what you paid and what you sold it for. So it's really important to keep really good records and record that information. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is, if you're selling dolls, maybe you can come up with a template of all the types of information a buyer would want to know about your doll, and document it in a similar fashion as I'm showing you here, and take pictures of the doll in different poses, so that the buyer can see that the legs and limbs are tight, the eyes open and closed, and all of the limbs, front, back, whether or not there's a long or short neck strings. The buyer will want to know that as well. Get a good picture of the neck stamp, and the list goes on. I'm sure you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. If you have the condition of the doll documented in this type of manner, and let's say you put it in your notes section on your phone or somewhere on your computer, you could just copy and paste it into the description when you get ready to post the pictures of your doll during your sale. It just makes life so much easier. Now it's time to host your sale. A couple of pointers. Start on time. If you are not able to start on time, at least let your potential buyers know that you're delayed and what time you'll be back. And here's a couple of photographs that I have of items that I sold in one of my prior sales, and how I listed the item. Once it's sold and the sale's over, I would go back and document that the item was sold, but you don't have to do that. That's just my own personal preference. Another thing worth mentioning is, be courteous of people's time and try to move your sale along quickly so that it can end sooner than later. And the only way to do that is to go through the sale and post the pictures all at the same time. And at the end of the sale, go back and review for comments or questions that people may have. In addition to giving you my thoughts on how to do a purge, I turned to some members in one of the Facebook American Girl Doll groups, and I asked several questions and did a survey. So I wanted to share the results of that with you as well, so that you have additional feedback on how people feel about various things related to sales, also known as purges, in the Facebook groups. One thing you'll need to decide when you have a sale is if you want to sell items and list the specific prices or do a deal or no deal sale. And as you can see from this survey, most people picked sales with prices and not deal or no deal. So that should help guide you there. Then I also posted a note in one of the Facebook groups and asked people for feedback on their general thoughts, pros, cons, etc. about sales. And here's some of the feedback that I received. This person said that purges are great, and the pros of a purge is if you announce a few hours or a day ahead of time, people can plan and prepare around those times. This specific person doesn't like deal or no deal. And if there's any wiggle room with the price, you should specify that in your post so people don't ask if you'd be willing to accept a lower price. Also, just be upfront about what the condition of the item is so someone doesn't have to specifically ask and then get disappointed when they receive the item if it's not what they thought it was. This particular person doesn't like advance notice and likes the impromptu purges, and that is really just a person's personal preference. So you may be a spontaneous person and attract buyers like this, and that could work, but that's something to consider as well. This person also mentions that advance notice is good to know as well, and does not like deal or no deal. Deal or no deal is clearly a way to sell that's not that popular amongst buyers. This person brings up a good point as well. When you're selling items, you should always put a number before you describe the item, because it makes it easier for people to track your sale. And if they step away, they know what they missed and they can go back and look through your sale. So this particular point came up numerous times, as you'll see, and we go through the rest of the comments. This person mentions that you should take screenshots of the items that you claimed and send a direct message to the buyer so that the buyer would know what that person purchased and can reconcile. But one thing to keep in mind is sometimes when you have a very active sale and many buyers, you may have various people claim the same item, and one person may think that they were first in line, but once Facebook reorganizes the claimed comments based on the actual time, someone who thought they had been first in line may not be first in line, and that's happened to me before as well. So taking a screenshot when you put your comment in does not always guarantee that that particular person bought the item, so you have to be really careful and go back and check everything. More good comments here. Obviously, preparation is very important on the seller's part so that the buyers know exactly what you're selling. Numbering your items. This particular individual feels that 30 to 40 items per purge works, but that may not work for the seller. The seller may want to offload 100 items, and if that's your preference, then that's what you do. You may not attract this particular person, but there are other people out there who like large purges because they'd rather have shipping combined and get more items from one person. This particular person here seems to like spontaneous purges for various reasons. This person would be interested in small purges versus large purges. And there's a lot to be said to that, because sometimes if the purge is so large and there's so many comments, there are certain algorithms within Facebook that may prevent commenting and make your purge much more difficult than it already is and just trying to sell your items. This person makes several really good comments here, but the one I want to point out is the comment related to invoicing your customers. When you prepare an invoice, you really should list each item individually on the invoice and the condition of the item, since you are technically selling as if you're a business, because you're using the goods and services feature in PayPal. And in the event that there is anything wrong with an item, the buyer does have recourse through PayPal for a refund. So other than that, this person mentions that it also helps build trust with the buyer, and that's true. But I think you should get in the practice of listing your items on the invoice separately and include the condition as well. This comment is really related to buyers, because sometimes a buyer may comment on an item and it appears that they made the first comment, but as I mentioned before, you may not be the first person as a buyer, and someone else may have beat you to the item. So you have to wait until all the comments settle to know who actually won the item. Here's another good comment. This particular person mentions advance notice seems to work. It doesn't work for everybody, but in this case it does. And also would like to get an idea of what the seller is going to include in the sale. If you don't have a clear collage or photograph of what you're selling, this is definitely a good idea. More good feedback here. Same thing we've already heard. Good pictures, clear description of what you're selling, whether or not there's any flaws, and number your items. This particular person likes when the buyer sends a list of the items claimed during a purge, but I'll be honest with you, I very rarely see people do this. I know I don't do it. Purges are chaotic. It's a lot of work for the seller, and this just becomes another step in the process, but that's your preference. Here's another good comment about cross-posting your items, meaning that if you're having a sale, people don't want to attend your sale if you've already cross-posted the items that you're selling, because there's a chance that whatever you're selling in the sale may have already been sold, and they don't want to get their hopes up. So this is a really good practice to follow, which is not to cross-post until after your sale. More good feedback. This particular person indicates scrolling past a sale if the items that are being sold are packaged in bags and you can't really see what it is. So that's something to consider. If you're selling something and you want to attract a buyer, then show the buyer what you're selling and don't keep it stuffed in a plastic bag. Here are more comments regarding numbering items, and this particular comment also mentions keeping items together that belong to a particular doll's collection, or maybe Truly Me, or whatever it may be. If you can do that, great. I would say that that's really difficult to do sometimes, because your pictures, if you're using your phone, don't always present themselves in the order that you would like. Here's a comment, and the one that stands out most, since other items embedded here in this comment have already been mentioned, is the pace of your sale. If your sale is moving along at a nice steady pace, you will retain the interest of your buyers. However, if you're slow and taking pictures the same time that you're posting them, or distracted, you will definitely lose buyers, because as this individual says in this comment here, there's no time to suffer through unnecessary long purges. Everybody has demanding schedules and things that they need to do, and they don't have hours to sit through sale purges. This person made a comment regarding new tax laws, and as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I'm not going to talk about taxes and what you're liable for. That's really a conversation that needs to happen with an accountant, but don't avoid this topic, because there are tax laws out there that require third-party payment services to notify the IRS if you have any type of sales over a certain dollar amount. And I'm not going to get into the specifics. I already said that this is a touchy conversation, and there is some legislation that you can look up. It's called the Snoop Act, SNOOP Act, and that will give you a decent amount of information about what I'm talking about. So feel free to do that on your own. Here's a recap of the top 10 items based on the feedback that I received. In case you want to look that over, I figured I'd give you a complete list. I hope this video was informative, and I wanted to wish you good luck in the future and all the best to you. If you have any comments about anything that I shared in the video or any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. You can just drop a comment below. I reply to every single comment I get and would appreciate the feedback. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please press the subscribe button and also the bell so that you're notified of any future videos I post. And also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching this video. And I also wanted to let you know that I have an Instagram page at AGTV for Life if you want to follow me there. And I also have an Etsy shop. And my Etsy shop is called Your Dolly Superstore, and my Etsy shop is stocked with every and anything for 18-inch dolls. And lastly, I have a sizable collection of videos that you might be interested in. Here's a couple of thumbnails of my latest ones, so feel free to check them out and let me know what you think. And I'm happy to have you here. Have a great day.